One of the most dangerous things happening in politics right now is that some of the craziest people in media are getting really good at identifying real problems. I will explain why it's dangerous, because maybe you're kind of like, well, isn't that a good thing? If even the craziest people are getting good at identifying problems, isn't that a good thing? I believe that if I do a good job, by the end of this story, you will agree with me, or you might never watch one of my videos again. It's a risk. It's a risk, but I'm willing to take it. Okay. If someone says, let me frame this up. If someone says something completely disconnected from reality, most people tune it out immediately. So you turn on some right-wing nut and they go, purple lizards are the reason Trump won or whatever. You go, all right, I'm moving on. But if you hear someone correctly identify a pain point, a frustration, maybe a corrupt situation, an economic anxiety, elite hypocrisy, or an institutional failure, now people listen and they go, okay, that sounds like a real problem. Tell me more. And what's happening with parts of the far right, parts of the online populist movement, even some people on the pseudo left, is that they are using very similar anti-elite populist sounding rhetoric. Now, I've talked before about the trap of populist rhetoric. And the trap of populist rhetoric is that it's not policy, it's a rhetoric. And so the rhetoric can sound very similar no matter who is espousing it. And only when you get to their proposed policies do you realize, whoa, this makes sense. But this other person who sounded very similar sounds completely whacked out. So this is like the danger of populist rhetoric. Trump's an example of that. I understand the plight of the common man, and here are the problems, including Mexican rapists. And it's like, hold on a second. Mexican rapists are the reason that the average person isn't doing well in the United States? That's the danger of falling for the populist rhetoric. Cool. The way it usually works is they start with observations that sound reasonable. You know, the middle class is getting crushed. That's true. Corporations have too much power. Absolutely. Antitrust isn't being enforced. It's not. Americans feel alienated and disconnected in many ways. Absolutely true. Elites manipulate institutions for their own benefit. Often true. The pivot is where the insanity appears. Tucker Carlson is one of the best examples, I would say. He will talk about stagnant wages, for example, the deconstruction of local communities, opioid addiction, corporate greed, financial elites hollowing out local towns. And people hear it and they go, finally, someone really understands what's happening. This is great. But then you get to Tucker's solutions and they're completely detached from reality. Instead of focusing on, well, listen, we got to look at labor rights and healthcare and go after monopolies and tax policy, and unions need power and housing. No, it's like, hey, brown people will take your house or your job or your girlfriend and they'll make the country worse. Whoa, hold on a second there. Or to pick another example, trans people, or DEI, or college professors, or they'll come up with some real, they'll scapegoat someone. They'll find someone to scapegoat. And the truth is that, of course, the economic pain is real, but the diagnosis is increasingly by these right-wingers a form of cultural paranoia. Nick Fuentes does the same thing. It's different in its details, but it's essentially the same thing. Nick Fuentes has identified correctly that a lot of young men feel isolated, they're economically insecure, they're disconnected from institutions, or they think institutions don't serve them. They're pessimistic about the future. Why wouldn't they be? They're unable to afford homes. They're skeptical of elite power. A lot of the mostly heterosexual men that are in that movement are involuntarily celibate. They can't find a girlfriend, for lack of a better term. That stuff is all real. But then in comes the reason why is the Jews. And this takes a million different forms of it's the Jews. I don't think I have to explain all of them, but that's where it's incredibly dangerous. Once you are feeling emotionally validated by someone, you're vulnerable to their conclusions and their solutions. And that's why the emotional opening is often way more important than the logic of what they want to convince you of. Alex Jones actually built an empire doing this. That empire has come to an end, but Alex Jones correctly identified that sometimes governments do lie. Sometimes corporations hide things. Sometimes media narratives can be manipulated. That's all true. But then every tragedy is a false flag. Every shooting's a conspiracy. You got to drink his silver liquid in order to be strong and all this stuff. And institutions end up being framed as part of a demonic global plot, as opposed to sometimes they screw up. Joe Rogan drifts into this too. He'll correctly identify failures in media credibility sometimes. Or, hey, here's an instance of pharmaceutical corruption. Here's an instance of institutional arrogance that I don't like. And a lot of people agree with that. But trust has collapsed so badly that people jump from institutions sometimes fail to nothing is real and every conspiracy is true. And sometimes the online left falls for it as well. You'll hear corporations sometimes exploit workers. That's true. We got to deal with that. Healthcare companies profit from the suffering of people. In a strict sense, that's true. Billionaires have too much influence. I'm with you. But then some people leap towards these fantasies about let's abolish markets entirely and defend authoritarian governments simply because they oppose the United States and all of that. And the problem is either capitalism at its core or Israel, and both need to be ended. It's the same emotional mechanism. It's real pain, insane solutions, often rooted in scapegoating. And this is why populism has become really confusing for a lot of people. Left-wing populism and right-wing populism sound the same for the first 30 seconds. Both criticize elites. They criticize the concentration of power. They criticize corruption. They want to focus on institutions that aren't working. But then the road splits. One direction hopefully goes to let's expand healthcare, let's raise wages, let's give unions more power, let's enforce antitrust, let's have proper and fair taxation, let's raise the housing supply, let's do democratic reforms. The other goes to let's find certain races and ethnicities to scapegoat, let's do conspiracy theories, let's push authoritarianism, let's push nationalism, let's do cultural revenge against the people who have wronged us. And unfortunately, in periods of instability, people become desperate for certainty. And that's why these movements grow. It's not that every supporter is evil, but if you identify real problems, that gives credibility to the people who are going to give you horrible answers. And if normal politicians refuse to honestly talk about the economic pain and the institutional distrust and all of it, there's going to be a vacuum. And next thing you know, someone like a Tucker Carlson or a Candace Owens or an Alex Jones fills that space. Demagogues, propagandists, conspiracy theorists, people who monetize the culture war. That's not who I want in the positions of influencing what the solutions might be. Understanding this process is part one for trying to actually deal with it. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.